What happens when a chiropractic sports physician and an osteopathic physician walk into a bar? We're about to find out. Today we have the incredible Dr. Dawn Linn with us today. Girl, what are you drinking?
You know what? I got something new to try from my girl Kelly Swan at Epicure. It's a really cool company. Anyway, this is Blue Butterfly Tea Bag. You love tea. You'd like this. It's got hibiscus and apple and orangey. So just confessions here. I had to make a mocktail because I'm still at the office. But look how pretty that is. It's blue. It's a blue simple syrup, and it turns purple when you add lime. But my girl hooked me up with a little tequila for when I get home. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So
I mean, it looks good. It's purple.
I mean, it's gorgeous, but Epicure, it's so good. And they have a ton of gluten-free stuff for my celiac friend here.
Oh, nice. Well, my lady, I have a Monte Carlo. Monte Carlo is one of my favorite beverages of all time.
Good choice.
Today we have E.H. Taylor bourbon in there. It has a little Benedictine, that's part of the drink, a lemon twist, some bitters. Absolutely incredible. Had to take the E.H. Taylor route because in the 40s, their ad campaign was for a great host, you have to have E.H. Taylor.
Oh, yeah. That's
Colonel
nice.
E.H. Taylor, some just great background on him. A OG in the world of bourbon. Really took it out of the what's that?
You make your own bitters, too?
Oh, no, that is so much work. Have you I go to Bluegrass like everybody else in Hendersonville. That's what I do. Yeah, they got a great selection. What's funny, though, is Colonel E.H. Taylor, he really changed it from where it was almost like this backwoods whiskey making thing and popularized the really nice industrial and like this castle setup. Super cool.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's actually really delicious. TikTok is a new hot thing. We put how to make this drink on there. It'll be on Instagram. It'll be on our Facebook stories after the show, which will be a whole lot of fun too.
Yeah, that's cool. I can make 5 different drinks with this tea, this Blue Butterfly tea. So I got a recipe card and everything. I'm excited to go home and try all this stuff.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna drink a Rita, I think, with tequila.
One of the best parts about the show that we're really excited about is the charity component that's really passionate to me, really passionate to you. And we really want to talk about the charity that there's going to be a donation that we encourage everyone else to make as well. Dr. Linn, our sponsor, has matched.
Right?
Yes. Right now, actually, they will see a video of how to go to the website, Live Love Nashville, how to be able to actually donate. But go ahead and if you'd like to say anything about this great charity.
Oh my gosh, y'all, it's so cool when somebody feels it in their heart that they just want to give back to their community, and they think, maybe I'll collect a few things. I'll organize a little amongst my friends. And little did Taylor know when she started just collecting a few things here and there that it was going to be so massive that Ellen DeGeneres noticed. Her video is hysterical and adorable, and it makes you want to be Taylor's friend and give all day long to her. And she has got some beautiful merchandise, which she's going to, I know, restock because she's so popular. But there's a heart attack shirt on that website that I'm going to need. I need to wear that heart attack shirt. That is so nice. And I'm super excited that we're representing her and that we're shouting out to her and just giving. She did so much for MPO Bristol during that whole tragedy and gave so much back to them. And what a blessing she is to our community, not just in Hendersonville, which is where she is, but to Nashville at large. She just doesn't care where you are. She's going to be there to help. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's really great. The hardest part is, though, if you go on the website, you'll see that right now it's playing how to go to the website and how to donate. The hardest part is, though, when you go, there's the merchandise section, and it's almost like the date when Jordan's shoes drop. It's like the stuff sells out in 4 seconds. So it kills me. The merch is too hard to get. We are really excited to be able to say, though, that our sponsor as well, Active Spine Joint Center, is going to match that donation. Active Spine Joint Center, their number one thing to help in the community is if it's muscles, joints, nerves, tendons, or disc pain, they're going to bring the best of evidence-based care conservatively to help people get out of pain as fast as possible and to stay active, especially in times that are a little bit more challenging like now, and more people are getting out more than ever. So we want to see that individuals, as they're trying, we're seeing running upticks like crazy in local communities when maybe they wouldn't before because they haven't had the gym access and things like that that they're used to. But we really want to give them a big shout out. They're going to match the donation. We're really excited about that and hope that everyone else donates as well.
Definitely.
Dr. Linn, one thing that she does that's absolutely incredible, not only does she have a great direct primary care practice, but she also works shifts in the ER, helps out at the VA. I really do want to touch on this. This is something that I think our community really always has a lot of questions about the ER component that you're able to bring, especially in this local touch and understand it so much better. But maybe just talk a little bit about some of the conditions you may or may not want to come into the ER. And let's think of the cases, the tougher cases that are going to come in. They're going to be able to get discharged, but maybe they're sick, or maybe it's just a really tough case right now. What's been going on the last couple of months?
I've been working in the ER. I'm a family practice physician by training, but I've been working in the ER since my training days. So I've been working in the ER for over a decade. And I don't do any of that major trauma center stuff. We save that for the ER trained docs. But most people don't realize that many of your small town ERs are staffed by family physicians, internal medicine physicians, surgeons, general surgeons work in ERs, because we need our trauma centers. But we get some pretty amazing life-saving stuff too in these small towns. When that's the first place you got to come, which is why I need Taylor's heart attack shirt. But right now it's been super interesting. I think people are just afraid to get out. They're not coming as much. Our census has been way down. But what we are seeing is real emergencies. Sometimes we get what I call an urgent care feel going on in the ER. Maybe they've had chronic back pain for 6 months and they're just like, you know what, I've had enough. I've got to go somewhere. And they don't have a family physician, we're going to get to that. But they come to the ER, their knee's been bothering them for 6 years. They've maybe seen it looked at once or twice. They really haven't done much for it. It's not necessarily an emergency. So those are my least favorite things to really deal with, or a cold. You don't even want to get me started on a cold. Going to the ER for a little bit of sniffles for a couple of hours. But again, that's why having a family physician in your pocket, somebody you can call, somebody you can be right in tune with and have a great relationship. I can just text my doctor, send her an email and say, hey, here's what's going on with me. Do I need to go to the ER? I think that's where we're missing a little disconnect in the last few years and how medicine has gone. And then this back pain issue, 6 months of back pain is not necessarily an emergency. I'm not saying don't go, people. I'm just saying if you feel like it's an emergency, let's just get my lawyer's statement on here. Please go to the ER. But when it comes in and we do our evaluation and we learn it's a musculoskeletal issue, which, as you know, is not something we can fix in the ER. We can't just get to that acutely. We really need a team approach to that. So that's why we love Active Spine and Joint. That's why we love you guys getting on top of that. You've got to do some team approach with me and your people and just attacking that together. But it's not emergent, unfortunately. It feels like it is when you're in pain, though. As you know, a lot of your patients, same way, they feel like they're just really suffering and they can't take it another day.
Right. And I think that's the hardest part when you do talk about that 6 months of back pain case that then finally has a massive flare up in pain where their levels of concern are so high late in the evening, and then they're going to go to the ED. I think that is a really challenging thing because it's typically, when we see that, I don't know about you, but it's so often it's that really high threshold of pain individual that can just deal with a 5 or 6 on level pain scale for a really long time. But what they're not understanding is they're convincing themselves that maybe that discomfort is completely fine when actually they're not getting a good read on what their nervous system's telling them at that point, because now they're sensitive, they're not really sure, and then now they're at that point, are they a flare up or are they not? And that's what's really challenging. The one thing that I think that's really cool that you do as far as direct primary care, we've been doing a ton of telehealth this last 8 weeks, but talk to me a little bit about the direct primary care approach. The reason I want to talk about this is something you said that resonated with me that I've got to personally experience is the scenario of someone doesn't have a primary care physician and then they get in that desperation type moment where they feel like I have nowhere to turn. It's late in the evening. I'm going to go to the ER, and they may or may not have insurance, and that bill could be astronomical. Could be a really horrible scenario. And there's things like the Salva Center in our community that we have that a lot of people don't know about, that are the working uninsured, that if they don't know about that and then all of a sudden they're in the ER. But let's just talk about the difference. So there's those cases that maybe don't have a primary care, don't have that great relationship, which we have good evidence that is really important to have, especially as we go through the ages. Tell me a little bit about how that's been the last 8 weeks for you, because so many people, one of the last places they've wanted to be is in a physician office, right? So they've been trying to stay away because they're worried about an upper respiratory issue and then obviously catching the virus. So just talk to me about what's that been like in a direct primary care scenario versus the individual that doesn't have a primary care?
Well, two things. One is thanks for bringing up the Salva Center. What a great facility that we have here in Sumner County for the working uninsured. So many people don't utilize that. I mean, I refer patients there when they come to me and they think they want to sign up with me, but I feel like they'll be better served there. I mean, for the working uninsured, they just have, they're just a great facility. I'm really proud of them and what they do. A lot of volunteer physicians, volunteer dentists work there. So it's a great facility. But there's that gap, that small gap of people who, direct primary care, you said, you've been doing telehealth. I've been doing that for years. I mean, when you have direct primary care, you have that ability. We are not restricted to what insurance says we have to do. Sometimes so many people get so frustrated and they say, well, I called my doctor, but they said I had to come in, but my doctor couldn't get me in for 2 weeks. So yeah, here I am in the ER. Okay, well, I respect that. I hate to hear that because I want them to be able to say, I called my doctor and my doctor said, yeah, I can talk to you on the phone about this, or I can see you tomorrow. I mean, that's the joy of direct primary care is so let me just explain what it is. Some people might not know. It's kind of a newer thing. It's not new necessarily in healthcare, but in our area, I started it several years ago, and it's basically a monthly subscription plan. A majority of my patients actually have insurance. We just don't take it. We don't use it. We don't bill their insurance. It's like you pay your cell phone bill every month, but we're cheaper than your cell phone bill. You can come see me anytime. You can text me, email me, call me, even if it's the weekend, so it's the benefit of having that personal relationship with your physician. And, I think that it makes a difference, especially right now. I've got patients who are like, oh, I need to see you, but do I need to come in right now? Can we just talk on the phone? And what we've been saying is, yeah, you know what? I have the ability to say, yeah, let's talk on the phone. And then if I feel like I need to see you to evaluate you further, then we're going to come in. But it's really been a blessing for a lot of people. They can't take off work if they are maybe they are working from home and they are trying to figure out how to finagle that time off. We're able to talk to you on the phone or text by text without having to worry about it. So we've been doing telehealth for a long time, and it's worked out really well for a lot of our patients. So I think it's just a cool thing that everybody's picking up on it and able to do it now too.
Nice. Yeah, they just put a link to the Salva Center in the comments. And I think that is something really cool because there's other communities around the country, obviously, that have those as well. But it's such an undervalued service. When I talked to Dr. Hill several years ago, and he said, we have a pretty good estimate of how many people qualify for this. And it was like 14% or something was actually utilizing the service. And that obviously affects grant money and those things that are really important. I think what's really cool about the direct primary care approach that you discussed is that there's that time where you can have that relationship and the times that really matters. And we know how important that is with your physician. And to be able to have that relationship long term and then say that pain flares up and be able to have that conversation and say, hey, here's where I'm at, want to do a check-in, somebody that knows me, have that relationship can prevent those ER visits. And I think that's the thing. I think at some point, I think it'd be a really good idea for us to have you back on the show and talk about, I know specifically there are certain people that have the opportunity. It's a certain segment where they could change insurance plans, save up their HSA, actually have a savings to themselves, their family, and their loved ones, and then have that relationship to be able to instantly access a provider in multiple different ways. I think that there's just certain gaps I'd really love to talk about and deep dive that later. That I think people just don't know that is an option, an opportunity. And in our community, we have a lot of great healthcare providers. But there's certain segments that I think really apply well there that just don't even know it's there. Same with the Salva Center. They just don't know that that's where they fit.
It's funny because people will say, well, I already have insurance, so I can't come see you. Well, you can come see me. The thing about insurance that people don't get is just because you have it doesn't mean you have to use it. I mean, it actually can save you thousands of dollars if you don't use it. People have these high deductibles they have to meet by using it. They have these high co-deductibles. We got started because a guy just could not pay his co-deductible to come see me. He really needed to see me. He could not pay that co-deductible every time he came in. And he's hardworking guy, has a really good job. He just was finding he was having to pay $100 just for one visit with me. That's insane. Where does that even mean? Where's that money going? So whether you have a $14,000 deductible, you just can't afford to use your insurance. So I always say, you don't go to AutoZone when your windshield wipers break and take your insurance card and go, here you go, I need some new windshield wipers. Heck, you don't even do that when your transmission breaks. You just take your cash down to your mechanic. And that's how we look at it here. You shouldn't have to pull out the catastrophic plan that insurance was intended to be, we'll get on that rant another time. But you shouldn't have to use your insurance for your relationship with your primary care physician. That's
agreed.
That doesn't even fit into my scope of practice anymore. So I'm really proud to be able to do that. And like I said, majority of my patients still have insurance. They've just got to that point where they just can't afford to use it. Or like you said, they've been able to save money by switching their plans to a higher deductible or to a catastrophic and not even bill their insurance. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, someone had asked in the comments how expensive is the Salvus Center, and then they have that sliding scale income base.
Yeah,
and I think that's what's really important to understand is that it makes sure it works well for you, and they're so good about handling and helping that situation.
And they really work well with Sumner Regional to work on if you need like surgical intervention or a specialist. They have grants and funds, and so please reach out to them if you have any questions. Reach out to my office. We're happy to help you with those questions too. So please don't hesitate to think that there's not people who in this community who want to help. There are people in this community. Now, the Salvus Center is only for Sumner County. So you have to be a Sumner County resident. You can work anywhere, but you have to be a Sumner County resident. So that's important to know. Of course, here we take anybody from everywhere. I've got patients who come from Dixon. I've got patients who come from Cookeville to see me. I mean, they come from a lot of different places because they recognize the importance of they just can't afford to use their insurance the majority of the time, or they just don't have any.
Yeah. Girl, let's talk a little bit of telehealth. So we've gotten really into that over the last 2 months. And I think that the trend's been there for a while, that's where the technology's been and there's been the availability to do it. But what's happened, one of the silver linings, if there are any, of the last 8 weeks is that it's really sped this up. But you being on the way ahead of that is something that's really cool and fun to talk about. What we've been seeing in telehealth, we've seen a lot of pros and cons. Again, our specialty is musculoskeletal, and it's pain, right? So people that are in pain and want to handle it conservatively and be on a plan to get strong enough to make sure that they put it behind them and close the chapter on any of those injuries. That's our specialty. So telehealth's just a little bit different in our realm than it could be, say, in yours. We know it in our field. 70 to 85% of the diagnosis is going to be found in that history. We just need to confirm or deny with our special tests and some of the thorough systematic systems we take patients through to find out exactly what's going on and timeline what's going on. But yeah, I just want you to wrap on that just for a little bit and just say, what you've seen the last 8 weeks, what it's been like. I know that seems a little odd to ask since you've been doing it so long, but to so many others, there's still a weird stigma about it. We had a time where we were reaching out to everybody in the community and letting them know this service is there because we had so many contacting us saying, look, I have a elderly loved one at home. I'm not going out. I'm miserably in pain, but how can you help? And at first there was resistance, but as days went on, they're like, look, I'll do it. And the amount of changes that we could make from the pain perspective were pretty dramatic, especially on that initial pain. We had several meniscus tears, just lots of acute injuries. We were able to actually diagnose over telehealth, and we're pretty wild how that actually went way better than we thought. We'd done them in the past, but never taken a lot of serious deep dive into it. But this last 8 weeks has really made a lot of people dive into it. But I want to talk to you from the overall health perspective and just wanted to get your take on maybe some pros and cons or just some stories about it.
Well, a couple of things. One thing you said is, I want to give you guys a shout out for this too, because what you do is very visual also. So while it's very hands-on when you're able to be in your clinic, it's very visual. A lot of people don't realize this, but osteopaths and chiropractors have very similar kinesiology, and that means that's just a fancy word for movement, y'all. But movement training and studying how the body moves. I remember in some of our classes, we just watched people walk. I mean, so sometimes when I'm out in public, I'll be watching somebody walk and I'll say, oh, their hip hurts on whatever side, or their ankle's bothering them over here. You can watch people walk and really learn a lot. So I think it's really cool that you guys are utilizing a video platform so you can actually watch your patients and see what they're doing, because you can pinpoint a lot. The thing that you said I want to bring up is that 70 to 8% of most all medical diagnoses are made with the history and physical. And one thing they teach us to ask, and I'm sure they teach you guys in chiro school, is what do you think's wrong with you? And so of course they're always wrong when it comes to the body, because but it gives us a perspective of where their concerns are and where we can really attack. Okay, where they're really thinking. They, of course, in my field, they're always thinking cancer, and probably in your field too, it's bone cancer, but they always think the worst. But when we're able to look at them and really hear their concerns, then we can deep dive into it. So I really appreciate the fact that not only what you guys are doing with the increase in exercise, what you asked me is we're seeing a lot of decrease in exercise because people are getting into a system of where their routines are completely off. And so they're having to work from home. And so I can appreciate the fact that you are able to look at their new workstation and look at their new ergonomics and figure out, is it how they're sitting? Is it how they're sitting all day long at this new workstation that they have at home where they're sitting at their grandmother's sewing table in this tiny little kitchen chair? You know, you're able to look at that from a telehealth point of view too. So I think that's really cool that you're offering that to your patients. But what I'm seeing is more than ever, people have this time to exercise, but they're not doing it. And I think part of it is because their routines are so off. I'm getting a lot of, I actually spend a lot of phone calls right now just discussing things, discussing the future, discussing current anxieties. There's a lot of insomnia. There's some, anytime there's an unknown, we just don't like it. We love routine. Humans are creatures of habit. We love our routines, even if they're very stressful. We love that the kids are going to school and then they got soccer practice and then we got to get to bed and dinner. And, we love that routine, even if it's stressful. So now that our routines are all thrown off, people are in a little bit of a panic, and deservedly so. So, I've been talking to a lot of people about turning off the TV. Please turn off your television. Getting outside. It is okay to get fresh air, and just taking those walks. Just get out there and move. Get your body moving so that you get into a new routine. Establish it as your new routine to get into the activity. Take the kids. God knows they need to get up. They're sitting on the couch working on whatever homework plus 8 hours of video games, whatever they're doing. So mostly it's just talking to people. What I've been doing lately is just a lot of just getting to know where their real concerns are, just really asking them those questions about, tell me what you're really concerned about. Because it starts off with, I've had headaches. I've been having more headaches, or I've been having a little bit of a sore throat. When you really get to it, it's like, I'm not sleeping. I'm worried. I miss my mom. You hear those, I miss my family. So I think that's important that people recognize that family physicians are, we work a lot in counseling too, and psychiatry, and just getting to the depth of really how we can help. Because as your mental health is super important to your overall physical health too. And I'm sure you get to a lot of that. They have an increasing headaches. Well, let's talk about that. Figure out why we're having those. It's not always musculoskeletal, although a lot of tension comes from this mental health component too. So it's just been nice to just talk to people, just like you're talking to an old friend on the phone.
Yeah. Had a couple good questions come in. Rob Canopy just joined. Wanted to say, hey, he missed all the good stuff that he would love about the ER conversation. He missed that piece. But I think we had a great question from Kelly Swan about telehealth. Is telehealth costly? What is that like? So, for example, I can explain in the musculoskeletal side. Basically, several of the insurances actually stepped up pretty well in our field, and what they did is said that for exam codes that that you would do in the office, that you would be able to do that via telehealth, and that would be covered as well. And so there are self-pay services for that if they don't cover. We make sure that that can meet a patient's goals or their financial goals, and a way to be able to do that. And our office has always done a really great job with that. We have a great administrative team to do that. I think I really want to talk about the topic you just brought up. I think that's where I really like to spend the rest of our time, is on these routines and habits. And I brought up that one of the things we saw were a big uptick in running injuries. And again, depending on our time. So for example, in our clinic, we have acute injuries right now. I've went telehealth. We have Dr. Dragland, Dr. Coghill that are seeing patients that are acute back pain cases, medical referrals in the clinic. And the thing that's been very interesting is that what I've been seeing a ton of are these overuse injuries for patients that we, had interactions with in the past. But like you said, the big epidemic that we're seeing is this massive disturbance in routine and activity. I had one case, very specific, that his job requires him to go in and out of big factories for long periods of time to do assessments and do engineering work. And one of the things that he does is basically he walks 17,000 steps minimum per day. That was the lowest he had in about a 5-week period. And now, because he's basically doing sales calls behind a computer, it's 700 steps a day. Calls with acute low back pain, miserable. I'm doing telehealth with him. And I just said,
his shoulders are hurting him.
Yeah.
He's getting all this.
It's miserable.
Oh, he feels awful. Yeah.
And I think that's where the health app can be really helpful for people if they have an iPhone, unlike yourself. But if they have an iPhone like the rest of America, you open up the health app, and then in there, It tells you how many. Yeah, nothing's cooler than putting the iPad in the back pocket and then just rolling down the street so it tracks your steps.
What?
That's cool. Cool story. That was good. I'm glad we covered that.
So they can
But
put it in. They can, and they, you know what? Some of us have cool, fancy watches that count our steps. We don't need to use our.
that's true. But yeah, it's not my game. Yeah.
I know, because you like old technology.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
You know what's interesting too? I'm glad she asked about the cost of telehealth. I so appreciate that our insurance companies have allowed it to be billed as a regular visit. Fortunately for me, I don't charge for telehealth because I don't have to.
So it's temporary. So let's pause real quick.
That's true. Yeah,
It is so temporary. They just moved the date back. I think it's June 1st now. And then they're cutting it off. At least every private payer that I can think of in our region, that's what they're doing. Yes, please don't think that they're covering that forever. I think there will be some pressure that's going to need to be a service. There's so much we can do. All providers, there's so much that we can do in those cases and save a commute and things. There's certain things that we need to be in office for, like you talked about. I really appreciate you bringing that up. That one of the things Action Plan Joints are known for is that pioneered putting on video a very systematic assessment of movement, and then being able to see that at re-exams to make sure that we're seeing improvement and that we're seeing that they're getting there. So we've been watching video stuff. It was really funny. Once I got forced in the telehealth role, it's like I drew the straw of telehealth when we all sat down about it. The one thing that I noticed was like, my gosh, we've been doing this, believe it or not, since 2011. Yeah. It's just, instead of being in the screen and then us throwing it up on a big TV, all of a sudden what we're doing is we're just actually doing that now on the screen the entire time. So I feel like in Tom and Jerry, I've gotten really good at just being up against a baseboard, watching them move and see the different things now. I feel like I've seen most angles of people's houses at this point. But I will be excited, for that transition back more to the clinic to see those cases. But I think that service is so valuable. And I think one of the most powerful things you said about direct primary care is that's what you do. That is the relationship. Yeah. That is what you have with your patients. And there are so many people that need to understand that service is there and that it's valuable and it's available. And I think that's what makes me really excited about that, because there are certain people that, let's be real, they have such a good insurance. They work for such a good company that it's like there's other good providers in the insurance world, and that makes sense. And then there's some that doesn't make sense. So I think that's where it's really good for people to just know their options and be able to see that, man, if you really value the telehealth component, you really need to look, consider this or let's apply political pressure towards insurance companies to make sure that they, do that as well. So I think it's really, really good. I don't care what
insurance companies do. That's the benefit of what I do.
I know, girl.
I know it's
amazing.
It's a headache to not have to deal with insurance companies, but we do.
Funny joke.
It's funny you say, because I have people who, I love the fact you talk, going back to the ER just for a second, is I just had a thought of a patient who called me one evening around 6:00. He's texting me, I'll talk to my patients until about 10, and then I'm going to bed, and then if it's that important, call me tomorrow. And they know that my patients are so great. People say, oh gosh, they have access to you all the time. Don't they bother you? No, actually they don't. And sometimes I get onto them for that. Or they'll text me and they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. Well, I'm your doctor. That's what I'm here for. Don't apologize. That's what you pay me for, is to be here for you. Now you bother me too much, we're going to have problems. No, I'm just kidding. But this guy texted me at 6:00 in the evening, and he says, hey, I was out fishing today. I got a fish hook in my calf. Do I need to go to the ER? No. I'll meet you at the office in a few minutes. I'll get that puppy out. I was with my kids. We were getting their hair cut. I said, let me finish getting their hair cut. We'll be up there. My kids thought it was so cool that we were going back to the office to take a fish hook out of the leg. That guy had no insurance, Jason. None. If he had gone to the emergency room, he would have had thousands of dollars worth of, he owns his own business. That's the thing, is I work with a lot of businesses, restaurateurs, musicians, people who don't have insurance, people who own their own business, contract employees. A lot of my uninsured patients are like that. They just don't have access to good insurance. So he owns his own business, and so he didn't have insurance, and so he had catastrophic, of course, if he has a car wreck or, God forbid, a heart attack, something. But he was able to come here, got that fish hook out, got him taken care of, sent him on his way, no charge. That's just what we do. He already pays me to do that. So it's really cool.
I think that's what's so hard in a moment where there's panic and lack of control, right? So fish hook happens, panic, ER. I know that that's going to happen, right? And that's what's difficult. I think it's so hard that the heartbreaking piece is it's just when people don't understand, or I think the best way to put it is when every patient comes into our office, we have a section where we say, who's your primary care physician? And I will say that year after year, outside of 09, 10, and 11, there was a lot of people without PCPs. But after that, there was a good spike. And now we've noticed that it's probably 30% don't have a primary care physician. And there are so many times where that's an interesting thing that we don't enjoy, and there's a right fit for them. And I think that's just the challenge, is that you need a healthcare medical team. And I think that, we've probably collaborated with hundreds of patients over the years, over the last decade. And it's just to those patients to be able to know what it's like to say, if you've got pain, you've got somebody that's got your back. If you've got, any other systematic disorder, and somebody that has the whole triage picture, as well as can make so many great decisions, they're right there. For those individuals, they don't know any different. But to be somebody on the outside, I think that's what's a challenge. They don't know what it's like to have a really good medical team around them. And that's what's really a challenge. But let's talk about a little bit of your opinion on what are some recommendations you would have for individuals as far as routines go? Because I'm pretty passionate about this topic, having spent 8 weeks on telehealth and watching these same things like you have. I want to hear just what are a couple of your experiences, like you said, as far as the routines where they're really struggling and the things that you've been able to help them do to get back. And I think we can just go back and forth on that for a minute, because I think that right now, and if you're in the comments, feel free to put your opinion, but what's it felt like the last 8 weeks with your routine? Does it feel like it's consistent? Do you feel like you really enjoy that routine? Do you feel like it's been off? Pandemic fatigue is a real thing. And I saw a really good, compelling argument about it, that it's not something we have a ton of documentation on, but man, we're seeing it in every office. Just people are just fatigued. Their energy levels are dropping if they don't have a routine. And I think that's the consistent thing that I've seen, is if they have the routine, if they're up in the morning, they've got their, hour-long walk, they're, then getting on, they'll check a little work email, but they've got their things they're doing. Like, I'm not touching my phone for X number of hours a day. I'm doing this with the family. I'm staying in touch on Zoom calls with loved ones at this period. And they have that routine. Those are not the cases we're talking about. But what's unfortunate, I would say it's a dramatic higher percentage that don't have that. And that's what I think is really challenging. And if they don't have it now, the good thing is it's not too late. There may not be necessarily an end in sight of when things go back to America 2.0, whatever that looks like. But what we can say is that you can take control now, and that you can do what a lot of people are being very successful with. Your routine may be a little bit different, but I think that we can go back and forth. We've talked to enough patients over the last 8 weeks that we could probably give some pretty good insight. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Fortunately, school gets out this week. Well, next week is the last week of school. So fortunately, people are going to finally get their summer routine that they're used to. Not my kids. I'm keeping them on schoolwork. I'm enjoying giving them stuff to do. But I think that what people, and I say this even before all this happened, if you don't put your routine in a calendar format, so especially after people retire, you see, this is how I equate it. I equate it to people who are retired. If they've been furloughed, or if their new routine is to work from home, you still have to keep your hours. You still have to go to bed at a good time. You still have to get up at a good time. You can't stay up later. You can't sleep in late. You got to keep your regular work routine. You have to know that if I call my best friend that between 10 and 11, if she always went to her yoga class between 10 and 11, she should still be online looking up Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, doing her yoga class from 10 to 11. People need to still find those routines that fit them. You've got to keep that calendar. And I think that's what a lot of people have done, is they've lost that. They're like, okay, my kids are home. They're focusing on them. They're doing a great job. Like, from 9 to 10, I'm going to have them do this and take a little break. And then they got a Zoom call with their teacher at 11. They've got their kids on these great routines. But for themselves, they forget. Just like you said, you've got to know that from 7 to 8 in the morning, or 8 to 9, whatever your hour is, you can't reach me by phone. I'm on my walk. Okay. And if you're not setting those times, if your sleep time is off, if your wake time is off, you are not. So I've just been telling people to make it a point to make a schedule. Just like if your boss were to come to you and say, hey, this is what your schedule is going to be at the office, do the same thing for yourself. Because one thing I've always told people is, you will work your butt off for a boss to keep that schedule rigid and get those things turned in and turn in for deadlines. But you are your boss, that your body needs you to be just as rigid and to be just as dedicated to this job as you are to that outside job. So if your job now is different, yes, work from home, yes, still kick butt for your boss because you're an amazing employee, but recognize that you are still important and you still need those breaks and you still need that time to give yourself, but show yourself grace. Get up, move, and put it on the clock. Set an alarm. It's time to get up. It's time to go for my 7-mile walk as you've been doing. It's important that you just keep your calendar. So many people, like you said, that fatigue is real. It is, people are, but I think also that God, again, let's go back to, can we turn off the television? Just turn off the TV. Don't watch the news. Focus on your family. Get those Zoom calls scheduled. Just play some board games, but turn off the TV. That'll help your fatigue and stress so much.
Yes. And I think what's really great, Laurie Dragland just said in the chat just before you started that, is how important it is to make exercise routine. And you're exactly right. That's the biggest thing. But someone else said that they needed a suggestion, and that was Kelly again saying they need a suggestion about how to make that schedule and how to do that. And I think what's really important is that, you've got to find what is right for you as an individual, that is right for you exercise wise. And you've got to meet yourself where you're at. Like you said, give yourself some grace. If you aren't used to walking, if that's not something that you do, don't start out with 5 miles and then get blistered up and then say F this and quit. It may start off with, I'm going to do some marching in place, or I'm going to do a 4-minute or 5-minute YouTube video on simple exercise, but start the routine. And the most important thing that we have great evidence for is how to lock in a new routine or habit. And it's that you do the activity, whatever that routine is, you start out, say that exercise, but you have to have that reward center at the end that drives in and gets those happy chemicals released to the brain to where we get that serotonin release and we get that dopamine release to say, let's do that again. Yes. So you've got to make that habit consistent. So the biggest thing is there has to be some trigger. And so my favorite trigger, again, this is my bias, but I love, like Dawn said, you set that alarm. And my favorite is in the morning, but some people may like at lunch. So you set that alarm, and that's when you're going to start your routine. So that's the trigger. The trigger starts. Now you're going to jump into that activity. So that exercise, that thing that you probably don't want to do. And realistically, for a while, if you've already been 6-8 weeks of like my sleep routine's off, like Cassie put in the comments, or your routines, things are just out of whack, then it's going to be really awkward and uncomfortable for the first several days. So the key thing is you've got to pick something that in your mind's eye, you would say, oh, that's not that bad. I could easily do that. Yeah. So you've got to pick something that is super attainable that you could take a bite out of and execute. So you have to have the trigger. It's either an alarm or wake up first thing in the morning. My favorite is you lay out all the clothes and everything that you're going to put out before you even get up that morning. You do it the night before. You get up in the morning. Instantly, as soon as that alarm goes off, you put those on. And then before you're even conscious to realize, hey, this sucks, I'm not ready to do this at 4 a.m. in the rain, you're already half a mile in. And you're like, oh, yeah, this is kind of wild.
I'm out here. Yeah. And I think
exactly.
It's really important. You have
commit
to have visual.
And then the reward. And so that reward's whatever you enjoy. I happen to really love coffee, and that's something important. So I get home, I'm making my oatmeal. Can't do some of the steel cut oats, like that really sucks, but I'm really okay with like the 5-minute oats, like I grew up on that. Mom used to make that, pretty awesome with that. So I'll hit that. I'll hit my coffee in the morning. That habit starts off great, and that locks in the reward center. You repeat that for a few weeks, and all of a sudden you're in a routine again. That energy level comes back up, that fog is removed. And I think that's what's really, really important. And the message that we want to get across is you can completely do this. You do have to understand it's probably not going to be something you want to do right away, but you've got to pick the thing that you say, oh, I could easily do that. And then each day make it just a little bit more as you get the reward center. And give yourself some grace. I mean, if we talk about it, Dawn, you brought this up before, but this meme always cracks me up when we talk about the COVID-19 and putting on weight. Like, let's be real. I mean, I'm an emotional eater. That first several weeks, I watched that scale climb every other day. And I'm like, this is not sustainable. I was really, really close to that COVID-19 weight-wise, and realized, hey, that's probably not the best decision. finally
Yeah.
initiate the habit, just like we're talking about. Even though I was advising people for weeks, that's exactly what they need to do. It was really, really challenging. So I just think the key concept is at some point we've just got to initiate that. And I think that's what's important.
And
Kaylee Coghill just talked about walking dogs is always a great thing, and how the dog gets really excited about that. And it's like, hey, you got a dog? They love to walk. Like, that's a great option. And it doesn't even have
Yeah.
to be long to start that habit.
I love that meme too, where they're showing the dogs are like, why are we walking so much? People are at home. But two things that you can do that will really help. One is it has to be visual. I think we spend so much time as moms, we're these Pinterest moms, and they have all these calendars, and from 8 to 9 you're going to do this, in the summertime, and 9 to 10 you're going to, that needs to be your calendar. It has to be visual. If you don't have some kind of visual that says, here's what I've got to do, you won't do it as well. So I love putting out the clothes. I love that they're sitting out. You're going to guilt trip yourself into it. And don't wake up in the morning when your alarm goes off and start doing this. This is wasting your time. You'll spend 30 minutes doing that. You could have been outside walking. The second thing is, besides making it visuals, get a friend involved. There's nothing like accountability. There's nothing like that camaraderie. There's nothing like that competitiveness, that you are not competitive in any way. So I know that won't work for you. Just kidding, y'all. Do not challenge him. But if you can get a friend and say, hey, listen, I'll tell you, this has been so sweet. I have a little me at home, and my husband has a little me at home. They look like us and act like the other. But one of them, every night, Nathan, he's 8. And when I come home, he says, are we going on our walk? We've gotten into this routine. And he knows we're going to take a family walk. We're all out. The dogs are out. The stroller's out. I've got 4 kids at home. We're all out. We're all going, y'all. They're like, oh, sometimes. But I say, no, we're going because we're going to spend that time. It's quality time. I'm a quality time person. So that feeds my love language. But it teaches my kids that this is important. We got to get outside. We're going to be active. And now they love it. They look forward to it. A couple weeks on Mother's Day, I have gone to doing virtual races, unfortunately, because most of our races have been canceled. But that bling is my reward. So on Mother's Day, there was a Wonder Woman race in Nashville, and I signed up for it. Of course, it got canceled. But on Mother's Day, I woke up that morning, and I was like, I'm putting on my Wonder Woman shirt. And I hadn't looked at my medal yet. They sent it in the mail, and I hadn't looked at it. I'm putting on my Wonder Woman shirt. I am going out, and I'm going to put on my Wonder Woman socks, and I'm going for my 10K. And I got outside, and you'll love this, but 2 miles in, my kids are in the driveway when I pass back by with my water bottle, and
I love
they're
it.
cheering me on. And then on the 3rd mile, they got on their bikes. That was my support team. And so, at the end, they got my medal out, put it on my neck. It's very sweet. So you've got to get your family involved, get your friends involved. It's not enough to do it by yourself. We are already lonely enough. I had a patient today, and she said, I'm lonely and I'm surrounded by people. And I said, yeah, but it's the same people. We miss our friends. We miss our socializing. Make exercise and your routine an accountable system to your friends. Get them involved, get your family involved. That's a good idea. We should start a challenge group, Jason. That would be fun.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. No, I think it's great, girl. Hey, we're up against our hard end. Producers are giving me the finger. They're saying, hey, it's over. You did great. Loved it.
It's not just the finger in general that they give you.
Yeah, exactly. It was a nice finger emoji. How about that?
Yeah, this has been fun.
I think it has been great. I think you're just such a good resource for the community. I think it's important that we keep getting these messages out there. I can't wait to have you on the show again. Thank you so much for coming on. We're going to do our final cheers. Live Love Nashville.
Live Love Nashville.
To Dr. Dawn Linn, to 2 docs. Amazing. This is actually our 1 millionth in one show. Everybody seemed to miss the first million, but we're at the 1,000,001 show.
Look forward to watching.
So we finally went live.
Yeah.
All right, girl. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Good night.